This is my second and last podcast. Hi, welcome again to Joan's Hidden Mirrors. I am Joan. I am 94 years old, and this was not a new career path for me. I had been guided to reintroduce the Essenes. So while I was about doing that, I put in a few what I call fun facts and a little bit of soul work with the mirrors and the take care of your garden, which I will address at the end. So today's podcast, I'll talk about God, the divine presence, and the spirit within, baptism and original sin, the story of Adam, Eve, and Lilith, and my conclusion of the Essene Jesus, whispers, ego, and the soul, and tend your garden. We are undergoing a planetary change, not a global warming change. This has to do with prophecies that existed through time. And one prophecy recently had an end date, December 21st, 2012. And that was the 5,126 year-long Mayan calendar predicting a change in the cycle of time. And this is an FYI, between then and now, sometime the planet actually shifted on its axis. It was an infinitesimal shift, but it was picked up and documented. So if it is true that the Earth's dimensional shift or transition into the light is coming, major geophysical changes will occur. Fluctuations in the Earth's atmosphere, unusual seismic activity, unusual weather patterns. So energy set in motion would be brought into balance. The harvest gathered, and then it would be time for a new cycle, a new life, a new planet. So I'll talk about God, the divine presence, the spirit within, versus baptism and original sin. I briefly addressed this in my first podcast, that there is no way you can have the divine presence and original sin. I mean, think about it. How can that happen? So in my studies, I looked up and it said there was no such thing as Christian baptism at the time of Jesus. John the Baptist, who was an Essene, used baptism as the central sacrament of his messianic movement. It was a preparatory act for spiritual renewal, symbolizing purification, rebirth, and the acceptance of the faith. He was an Essene, and he was to lead the way for Jesus, but something happened to him, and he was unable to fulfill his role. So we are all born of the flesh. But to enter the kingdom of God, we must also be born of the Spirit. And that is where baptism really comes in. So now we'll do a little fun fact, the story of Adam, Eve, and Lilith. So one day God was looking down before any of this happened, and Adam looked lonely. And so he decided that he would make Adam a mate, someone that he could share the day with. So he created Lilith, the first Eve, the same way he created Adam. He created her from the soil. And then he sent her there. And the problem with Lilith was Lilith wanted equal rights. She was made equally as far as she was concerned, and Adam was not going to be in charge. But Adam somehow did not like this. And so didn't take long where he, waved to God or whatever and said, this isn't working. I want I want someone else. I want a more biddable female. So God said, well, okay. So he then just sent Lilith out into the ethers for a while. And he said to Adam, I will make her more biddable. I will take her from you. I will create her from your rib. So he took the rib of Adam and created Eve. Now, and we know the rest of that story. Now, Lilith is out there, and she's just floating around out there, And so after a while, God called her and told her to come back, and she said no. And then he sent his angels after her, and she still said no. So, since Lilith had scornfully rejected both her chauvinistic husband and his God, scholars and priests sent her plunging into the depths of the abyss to become one of Satan's feisty mates. Now, when you're a young woman and you do something foolish and you get a reputation, it's really hard to live over it and after it, and be good with it. So anyway, from everything I could read, Lilith got really pissed off, and she has been, creating a little chaos in some places in the universe. But I've been thinking about this. So the lily is her flower. I think she's got a bad rep. I'm not sure all this was the way it says it is. So I would like to give her some energy and healing. I'm going to symbolically send her a lily whenever I think of her, and hopefully it will help. So the next thing is whispers. We all have a whisperer. Do you know you have a whisperer? That every time you're going to do something really stupid or not so smart, something in you says, oh wait, maybe you ought to think about this. But we just override most of that and just keep on doing what we're doing. It's like when you dated somebody who you shouldn't be dating, or especially if you married someone you shouldn't have married, and you had all kinds of glitchy things, but you were going to fix it, so you didn't listen to the whisperer. But pay attention to your whisperer and let the whisperer help you with your world. My next fun fact is A Course in Miracles says that the word sin is a word used in archery when you miss the mark, rather than able to be punished. In religion, sin separates you from God, but repentance and asking forgiveness brings you back to Him. But only the church can forgive you for your sin. So I was taught in catechism, when I was 9 years old, that the Essenes were heretics, banished from the religion, and we were never to speak of them again, under penalty of sin. I can't remember right now whether it was a venial sin or a mortal sin, but it was a sin, and I was 9, and so I did exactly what I was told to do. But I remember that day, and I never mentioned them again. So I'm going to reiterate to you once again that the information about the Essenes was gathered through past life regression therapy. People remembering when they and Jesus walked the earth together on I Am an Essene. The Essenes believed a great teacher would come and he would lead us to the light. And the same belief we church Christians had, believed a great teacher would come. There were two aspects to Christianity at the time of Christ. The inner aspect, which was the Essene way, and the outer church, which was the Christian aspect. This is a little bit about Peter the Apostle, because he played a big part in the Essenes. Before his conversion on the road to Damascus, Peter the Apostle began the rift between the mainstream teachings of the Essene way, and this led to the final persecution and elimination of all Gnostics as heretics carried out by the outer Christian church. After Peter's conversion, Peter began the way, which in time became the Catholic and Orthodox churches. But at that time, the inner church was spiritual, not religious. Spirituality, not religion, was the principal focus. It was the feminine aspect. And the inner church represents mother, goddess, wisdom, and life. The outer church represented God, knowledge, structure, ritual, and form. And neither one completed the other. In my first segment, I spoke of the Essene way as the path of the Spirit, a path of the heart, not of the head. The heart simply follows the Spirit and moves towards the light. The reference to light is important here. The light is a symbol for the Spirit. Jesus taught to go forward continually in the light. We can only emerge with the divine when we are capable of true forgiveness, and that includes forgiveness of ourselves. Without forgiveness, we are locked forever in the past, and I never thought about that if I was angry with someone and I held a grudge and I didn't forgive, that I was joined at their hip. They weren't joined at mine, so they were going on happily. So when you begin to let go of the past, you become more open to the guidance you need to make your present consciousness focused and go forward into the light. This is the time when a large number of people are waking up. Light in the spiritual sense is the boundless, eternal, divine light. In the Gospel of Thomas, a text in the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt, Jesus makes it clear that light is the source from which we came. And, I think we all just know that. Somewhere in us, we know that. And Jesus came to establish a more permanent way of spiritual development, and that centered upon this knowledge of the divine presence, the Spirit within. And this is the root, this is the important part of why Jesus came, to know who you are. So reliance on the Spirit is the path of the heart. It is where love and forgiveness live. And uniting with the Spirit are breakthroughs at the heart level. I am an emotion code practitioner. I understand this completely. So now on Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene brings a new understanding of the role played by women at that time. And even the Catholicism acknowledges she was the apostle to the apostles, and that she was the female found the crypt empty. And the church acknowledges she was the one to bathe him when he was taken down from the cross, and only a wife was allowed to do that. So maybe if we think about it, that we could let in a new perspective, start to build an alternative history to put alongside the traditional accounts. Mary Magdalene focused the energy of the sacred feminine. She was an empowered and enlightened woman. Unconditional love was extremely irritating to the men at that time, and men longed for intellectual or philosophical doctrine based upon reason rather than the heart energy. They wanted it more intellectually challenging and therefore more impressive to the male mind. The heart energy was too vague and insubstantial, and males longed for a set of logical and profound concepts. So Jesus had established that the Essenes could come back together through time to work with the way, but so far it hasn't taken. They haven't been able to do that. But the Essenes want their story told. So at the end of the cycle, the people who worked with Jesus will be drawn at a vibrational level to meet and will go forward as a soul family. The spirit of the Essene way will endure, for we are all locked into the Essene consciousness. Now I'm moving on to the soul. What is the soul? The soul is that part of you that existed before you were born and that will exist after you. There is one energy, a life force uniting all matter and humanity, and this energy is God. A soul is not something that you have. It is what you are. We are all born with the divine spark, and that spark can never be extinguished. Through our soul, we are never unconnected from God. So remember, you do not have a soul. You are soul. And Jesus taught that the spark in our heart houses the image of God. I used a coin analogy a lot. So, and the same with this. We have the soul on one side and ego on the other. And most people don't realize how big a part ego plays in everyday living. So if you think about, and I know you all saying, oh no, mine doesn't bother me. But every feeling you have that is not joy, because that's spirit, joy is spirit, is ego. Your anger, your guilt, criticism, any emotion that comes up, any feeling, and guilt is the weapon of choice of the ego. Shame is a big one. Anger. And the ego is a veil between what you are and who you think you are. It's ego's job to keep you away from spirit, to keep you from ever seeing God. Ego's job is to make you feel unworthy, not good enough. So yes, you do have an ego. And every emotion you have that's not joy, think about it, is ego. So now for the last part of my podcast. This is Tend Your Garden. One day I was just sitting reading again, the news had been particularly bad that day. And I was looking up at the sky and thinking, I can't do anything. I can't help. There's nothing I can do to help this situation. And I don't know what to do. And in my left ear, I heard, tend your garden. And I thought, I don't want to tend my garden. I don't like to tend my garden. Don't like putting my hand in the soil. Don't like planting flowers. I like buying flowers. I don't like planting them. And then I heard again in my ear, tend your garden. And I stopped for a minute and I thought, okay, so they must not want me to put my hands in the dirt. So I had to let it go for a minute. And then, things just started coming into me. And tend your garden was take care of everyone in your garden, which is your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, the people you care about, the people you respect. And how you can tend your garden is be kind and do no harm to all those in your garden. So think about your garden. Think about how you can do something to help the planet. Do you know what it would be like if we all just decided to do that, to tend our garden? What the world would change in 24 hours with all of us being kind and doing no harm and knowing that you are working in God's light. Powerful. That is the end of my podcast. Thank you for listening, and I hope I have given you some help and some peace and some knowledge. Thank you.